welcome to the very first bookish dive.
Ooh.
So each episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a different book.
Sounds fun.
Pulling out the juiciest ideas and figuring out what it all means for you.
I like it.
It's like a shortcut to being well-read.
Exactly.
And for our first dive, we are tackling Seth Godin's The Dip.
Okay.
Now, this book is all about quitting, but not in the way you might think.
Okay.
It's about strategic quitting.
I see.
Quitting the right things at the right time to free yourself up for bigger wins.
Yeah, that's a powerful concept, especially in a world where we're constantly bombarded with choices and pressured to do it all.
Yeah, so one of the big ideas in The Dip is this.
Okay.
In a world of infinite choices, being the best in your world is surprisingly valuable. Godin uses the example of Hannah Smith,
Okay.
a Supreme Court law clerk.
Right.
She beat out tens of thousands of other law graduates for one of the most coveted positions in the country.
Wow.
And he makes the point that it wasn't just luck or even raw talent that got her there. It was strategic quitting.
Interesting.
At some point, everyone else who could have had that job quit.
Yeah.
They might have quit the grueling study schedule, the endless networking,
all those things.
the extra internships.
Yeah.
They quit the things that would have separated them from the pack.
Makes sense.
And that brings us to another interesting concept, Zipf's law.
Okay.
So Godin uses Zipf's law to show how the rewards are disproportionately skewed towards the top performer.
I see.
In any field, the #1 spot gets way more than #2, #3, and so on. It's like the winner takes all.
Right.
He gives this great example of ice cream flavors.
Okay.
Vanilla is the most popular, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just a little more popular than chocolate. It sells way, way more.
Makes sense.
Think about when you go to the grocery store to buy ice cream.
Yeah.
You probably gravitate towards the brands, the ones that are considered the best.
For sure.
It is, even if there are tons of other options.
Yeah, I get that.
Same with movies.
Okay.
The top movie at the box office might make 10 times more than the movie in 10th place.
Interesting.
So what does this all mean for you?
Yeah, good question.
Well, it means that in a world of overwhelming choices, people naturally gravitate towards the perceived best. Whether it's a doctor, a restaurant, a podcast, or even a specific type of lawyer.
Okay.
Being the best within your chosen world is the key to standing out.
I like it.
And that's where the idea of the dip comes in.
Okay.
Godin introduces these 3 curves that represent different situations we face in our pursuits.
Okay.
The dip, the cul-de-sac, and the cliff.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's break down these curves.
Sure.
First up, we have the dip.
All right, the dip. So the dip represents that challenging period between starting something and achieving mastery.
Okay.
It's that point where the initial excitement kind of fades.
Right.
The learning curve gets steeper.
Yeah.
You're just tempted to throw in the towel.
I feel that.
Think about learning a new skill.
Okay.
Like coding or training for a marathon.
Oh, yeah.
You're all gung-ho at first.
Yeah, totally.
But then you hit that wall where it's just hard.
You hit the wall.
And you start to question why you're even doing it.
Is this even worth it?
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Most people quit during the dip. They see the difficulty, the hard work ahead, and they bail.
They're out.
And that's precisely what creates that scarcity at the top.
Okay.
The people who become the best are the ones who persevere through the dip.
Gotcha.
Think about Fortune 500 CEOs.
Okay.
They didn't just magically appear in the corner office.
Right.
They went through years, maybe even decades of hard work challenges, pushing through those difficult moments.
So they didn't quit.
And the people who are successful, they don't just survive the dip. They lean into it.
Okay.
They push harder. They adapt their strategies.
Right.
And they change the rules of the game.
They're the ones who are willing to do what others won't.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about when you're putting in the effort and just not seeing any results?
Oh, that's where the cul-de-sac comes in.
Okay, the cul-de-sac. So the second question was, am I panicking? What's the next one we should be asking ourselves?
The next question is, who am I trying to influence?
Okay.
This is about recognizing the difference between trying to influence a single person and trying to influence a market.
I see.
So let's say you're trying to get a promotion at work.
Right.
You've talked to your boss, you made your case, but they're just not budging.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, and you start to think, is it me?
Right. Is it them?
Should I just quit and go somewhere where I'm appreciated?
Exactly.
In that case, Godin says persistence might have its limits. You can only try to change one person's mind for so long before you have to accept the decision and move on.
Right.
But if you're trying to influence a market,
Like if you're trying to launch a product or build an audience for your work,
Exactly.
or even find the perfect partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
The market is made up of a diverse group of people
Right.
with different needs and
Yeah.
desires. So persistence is more likely to pay off because even if some people reject your idea,
Okay.
there are always new people to reach, new markets to explore.
So don't give up on your dream just because you've faced a few rejections.
Yeah, keep refining your message,
Right.
your product, your
Keep putting yourself out there.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got, am I panicking and who am I trying to influence? What's the third question that we should be asking ourselves before calling it quits?
The third question is, what sort of measurable progress am I making?
Okay.
It's about honestly evaluating whether your efforts are yielding tangible results.
So are you actually getting closer to your goal?
Right. Are you seeing signs of improvement,
Yeah.
or are you just stuck in a rut?
Totally. Like, are you gaining traction?
Exactly.
Are you building momentum?
Yeah.
Or are you just spinning your wheels?
Sometimes we put so much energy into something
Right.
that we become blind to the fact that it's just not working.
It's like running on a treadmill. You're putting in the effort, you're sweating, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
But you're not actually going anywhere.
If you're not seeing measurable progress towards your goal,
Okay.
it might be time to reevaluate your approach
Uh-huh.
or consider quitting altogether.
You know, it's interesting. Godin talks about how we're conditioned to think that quitting is bad,
Right.
a sign of weakness.
Like a failure.
But the dip turns that idea on its head. It reframes quitting as a strategic tool,
I like that.
a smart decision that can free us from dead-end pursuits
Yeah.
and empower us to focus on areas where we can truly thrive.
It's not about giving up on your dreams.
Right.
It's about being intentional with your time and energy,
Okay.
recognizing that those are precious resources.
Yes.
That should be directed towards endeavors that align with your goals and values.
And he makes this brilliant point about how the dip is actually flexible.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a fixed obstacle.
Okay.
The effort you put in, the strategies you employ, can actually shape the dip,
I see.
making it either steeper
Uh-huh.
or more manageable.
So by embracing the challenge, by being willing to experiment and adapt,
Right.
you can transform the dip from a daunting obstacle into a springboard
Ooh.
for growth and achievement.
So to recap, The Dip by Seth Godin teaches us that strategic quitting is not a sign of weakness,
Right.
but a sign of strength and intelligence.
It's about choosing to invest your limited resources
Right.
in areas where you can truly excel
Yeah.
and become the best in your chosen world.
And before you quit anything, remember those three questions. Am I panicking? Who am I trying to influence? What sort of measurable progress am I making?
Those are good ones.
By asking ourselves these questions,
Yeah.
we can make sure we're making decisions from a place of reason and strategy,
Right.
not just fear or frustration.
And remember, the dip is where success happens.
Ooh, I like that.
The rewards for pushing through those challenges,
All right.
for becoming the best in your world, are truly extraordinary.
So I'm curious, what cul-de-sacs are you holding on to right now? What dips are worth pushing through to achieve that extraordinary reward?
Good questions.
These are the questions we encourage you to consider as you go about your day.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this bookish dive. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a different book and more game-changing ideas. Until then, happy reading.
37 Etober.